Okay, we all have the place. Yud Gimel Amid Beis, the last two lines. Tanu Rabbanan. Haroitza ledabek Torah nevim uksuvim ke'echad. He wants to make one big scroll of everything, the Torah, the whole Tanakh together. According to our mayor, he wants to say medabek. He may do so. He's allowed to connect them and make them one big Sefer Torah. However, the oise bereishai kedei lagul amud. At the beginning of the Torah, at the beginning of the scroll, he has to leave enough blank parchment that it could go totally around the pole. Ubesaifa kedei lagul hekef. So if we all picture a pole, we have, this is how it looks. We have one pole. It's this picture. It's two, actually, it could also be here. It could be this already. Do we see we have one little pole? So you have to leave. We see the ice aleph. Ice aleph is empty. So like that, it goes around the pole. It's not a design of ksav on the pole. And then the Sefer Torah, the more parchment you have, the thicker it becomes. So you have to leave a lot of space to totally go around it. Like that, there's no ksav facing down, if we think about it.
Is that an ace line there?
What do you mean?
On the right.
This?
Yeah.
This is the regular Sefer Torah today. We have that. We have two poles, so it's only one of them. We're going to see in a minute about Sefer Torah today. We do two poles, but this is how it looked. It was only one pole. So since it was only one pole, the beginning needs only a little space, right, to go around it, and then later on, where it gets a very thick, you need much more ksav. That's the brisa. Right? To beside for gedei lagul hekef, enough blank parchment that's going totally around it. Umesayim milamata, umaschil milamalo. It means to say is, as long as you finish, we learned yesterday that you need to leave a few lines in between. However, if it's on the bottom of the page, then you can stop over there and have the next column a brand new sefer. That's not a problem. The imbalachtaich chayteich. If you want to cut the scroll into separate svarim of Tanakh, suddenly it's mutter. We learned in the Mishnah, because we said it's a bizayin. So Taisus says, the last two words of the Taisus, the first Taisus on the page, he says, it's only machmas chaluka, that's when it's a bizayin. You're only doing when two brothers or two people are fighting over a Tanakh and they're dividing it that way because of a chaluka, that's a bizayin. However, to split it up because it makes much more sense. We could find many reasons why you want to split it up. Like that, you could spread it out to different shuls, etc., etc. That is mutter to split it up. Okay, Frak Digmar, my kamar. No one argues if as long as not chaluk, which is not a bizayon, that it's mutter. Okay, fan for the Gemara hachi kamar. This is what he wants to say. She'im ba lachtoich. That means to say, if one wishes to cut the scroll, he may do so. That means to say as follows. We learned earlier that a person, we just finished up saying that if a person finishes on bottom of the page, he can start immediately on top. So this is the finishing up of the statement. Since we just finished up saying that a person can stop at the bottom of the page and immediately start on the next page, therefore, because it's two separate Svarim, because it's on the bottom of the page. That's all he's trying to bring out. Okay. Frak Digmara. Urminihi. This, we're going to show us a brisa. We just said in the brisa earlier that we have to leave in the beginning of the sefer. Sorry. In the beginning of the sefer, we need to leave for the amud. In the end of the sefer, we need to leave a much more parchment, right, to go all around the sefer. Or we have a brayta that says opposite. Chila sefer and the saifai is only enough gedei lagul. Now it doesn't say how much in the beginning, how much at the end. But what we are pulling out from this brayta is that there are equal amount of space. So for the Gemara is going to explain the question of the brayta. Gedei lagul mai. What does it mean to wind around this sefer? If we're talking about the beginning of the sefer, that you only need, let's call it an inch. To make it easier, 1 inch to go around the pole. Kasha hekef. Hekef needs at least 6 inches to go around the whole sefer. That means to say, since we put in the beginning and the end the same amount of space, it sounds like we're not being mechalek the beginning and the end. We just had a price. It told us 1 inch in the beginning, 6 inches at the end. And now we're saying that they have equal space. After tomorrow, Rav Nachman Yitzchak, no, it's tani. Nahainu, in the beginning of the Sefer, you need only for the pole. At the end, you need to have 6 inches. We don't mean it's the exact same amount of space. Rav Ashi Amar Kitanya Hi b'Sefer Torah. Now, if we all know, we go to shul. How does our Sefer Torah look? Our Sefer Torah has 2 poles, and they meet up in the middle. So therefore, the beginning and the end of the Sefer Torah only need 1 inch to go around the pole because there's 2 poles. Rav Kedetanya, like we find a brisa that's been mechalik Sefer Torah and other svarim, other nach. Kol hasvarim niglalim mitchilas and atzayfon, or mitchilas and less sayfon. All Sefer Tanakh, the way we roll it is 1 big roll with 1 pole. However, Sefer Torah niglalim tiyasai meets up in the middle. The Isalai Amud Elach le'elach. Mamish like today, we have 2 separate poles and we meet up in the middle. Amar Abelazar bar Tzadoik Kach Hayu Kaisvei Svarim Shebirushalayim Isis Ephraim. That's how indeed the Svarim Yerushalayim will do like today.
Why do you say that it meets up in the middle? It's equal. It's not.
It's equal when the parashiyos meet up in the middle. You're correct. When we're holding by V'zayis Bracha, one end goes the other end. However, when I say that they're equal grounding, is we're talking about the parchment regarding the poles. We're not talking about the in between, really. Let's just to make it simple, it meets up in the middle when it's in the middle of the parashiyos. You're right that when we're holding by Bereshis, that doesn't make a difference. We're not worried about the parashiyos in the middle. We're worried about the poles and at the end. So at the end of the beginning, every Sefer Torah, no matter which parsha we're holding, they both had that same amount of inch of a pole, nothing more. Okay. Tana Abana. Now we're going to get into brisas that pertain the making of a Sefer Torah. Ein Eisen Sefer Torah like Arka Yisal Kefite. So before we all get worried, today we don't do that. What he means to say is the brisa says that a Sefer Torah, its height and its circumference, whatever it's called, that whole circumference, which means that whole, basically, all directions should all equal the same. However, today we don't have that. And we're going to see even in the brisa, it's very, very complex to really create a Sefer Torah that the height and everything is perfectly equal. So, but the brisa says that the width and the height and everything should be equal. Same thing, it should be the height and the width. Sha'alus Rabbi Shiur Sefer Torah b'kama. How high should a Sefer Torah be? We're talking about whose lettering is an average height. So we want it to match, right? Like we just said. Armalahan b'gvil. Gvil was a very thick parchment. Shisha. Should be 6 tvachim high. He made the cheshbon. If it's 6 tvachim high, it'll be 6 tvachim wide, 6 tvachim in all different angles. The klaf. What about a klaf? Klaf is not as thick as a gvil. He answers, Bekama. Now is the layer that was outside of the animal. That's what Taisa says. Bekla, Bekama, any idea? He probably didn't know. Sometimes even a Rebbe could say, I don't know. Because it was very impossible. The only way to really find out, they bring down, was with trial and error. Therefore, the only way to do it is by learning. Okay. Now the Gemara is going to show us how difficult it is to make the same height and in all directions the same. Rabbi Huda Kosav Shivin Sefer Torah Daraisa. He wrote 70 Sefer Torahs. Only one of them turned out to be perfect, the way we want it to be. He only wrote 1 Sefer Torah, Amashche, the Egli, which is calf skin is very, very hard to roll it up because it's very thick. And it turned out to be perfect. They gave Ma'in, they looked at him in shock. And there's 2 pshatim, either by looking at him deeply, Rebbeinu Shalom Kaviyachal also looked at his meisim very, very deeply. And what happened to him? V'noch nafshein, he died. Wow. Okay. Why did he die? Either because of Ein Hara, like we learned Beis and Beis. Someone looks at you, Ein Hara is very, very big stuff out there. That's number 1. Or number 2 is, Kaviyachal is that the Rebbeinu Shalom, just like all the Ga'ini Adar were suddenly looking at him intently, Kaviyachal, the Rebbeinu Shalom also looked at him and went through every single ma'aseh that he did throughout his life, and he was nifter. Now, the Gemara is going to talk about, we just said Rav Huna wrote 70 Sifrei Torah in his life. Amrulei Rabbanan Rav Hamnuna. Kosav Rav Ami, we heard that Rav Ami wrote Arba Meya Sifrei Torah, 400 Torah scrolls in his lifetime. Amalahu, Rav Hamnuna knew it's not possible. Let's be real. To write 400 Sefer Torah could take Baruch around at least a good solid year to write it, even a half a year. You can't write it under a quarter of a year, right? So it's 400. Unless he lived to 200 years, it wasn't possible. So therefore he wanted to say, Dilma Tayrat Siva Lanu Moshe Kasav. Two options, that means. Either he just wrote, not either, he wrote the pasuk, Torah Tziva Lanu Moshe. Now that pasuk is, the Gemara explains in Sukkah, that when a child begins to talk to his father, the father is obligated to teach him Torah. And the Gemara over there says, what is Torah? The pasuk of Torah Tziva Lanu Moshe. Taisus, right? Vaymer Rabbeinu Tam, the Isai pasuk Torah Kedamrina Peragimel Sukkah Katane Yadeya. Ledaber avim elamde Torah, my Torah, Tziva Lanu Moshe. Yes, go with the Taisus. Yes, it's Taisus that's quoted that tells us this. That's one mahalach. Or option B is that they wrote. There was a bunch of seifrim. They had hundreds of seifrim writing Sefer Torah, but they would approach him to write specifically this pasuk in the Torah. Okay. Weiter, a similar ma'aseh that happened. Amalei Rav Lev Zeira, Natar Rab Yanai Arba Mea Kamri. Rabbi Yanai planted 400 vineyards. Now, vineyards is very large and complex. It's hard to believe that he was able to put so many. Amrlei, he realized it's highly unlikely. Dilma Shtaim Keneged Shtayim Ba'achas Yetzizanav. So if we look at the diagram in No 15, either we have it, you have it in the art scroll, No 15 has it, or they bring it over here. It's just five bushels, so it's not so many. That's possible for him to do that many. 5 of them, 5 times 400 would make much more sense. Okay, now the Gemara is going to quote a very, very lengthy brisa to challenge what Rebbe said, that a Sefer Torah, he said if it's Gvil, then the height will be 6 tvachim, like that, all angles will be 6 tvachim. We have a brisa that says as follows. It's going to be a little complex. We're going to try to do this. There's going to be a few sheet. That's exactly what an amma is, 6 tvachim, 5 tvachim. We're going to go into the luchais. Let's jump right into it. Meisvei. Aroin sha'asa Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu, he constructed a beautiful ark. Amasayim v'chetzi arkai. So it was 2.5 amas. We'll see in exactly what an amma is. Amas, we're going to say it's 6 tvachim. So he made 2.5 amas was its length. The amma v'chetzi rachbai. It was 1.5 amas its width. The amma v'chetzi kamasi. And how much is an amma? Bashisha tvachim. So let's look at this diagram. Make it easier. We have 1.5 tvachim go in this direction, which is how many? 1.5 amas, which is 9 tvachim. Then we have 2.5 amas, which is 15 tvachim. So we have 15 tvachim going one way. We have 9 tvachim going the width. The length is 15, and the height is also 9 tvachim. So it's 9 by 15 by 9. That's what's going on. That's the aron that Moshe Rabbeinu did. Now, the haluchais. How big was the luchais? The length was Arkan Shisha, 6 tvachim. The Rachban Shisha was wide 6 tvachim. The Avian Shleisha. So it's 6 by 6 by 3 tvachim wide. Now, though that luchais was Munachin Keneged Arka Shel Aron. It was right near the Aron. And they put in a box, right? This is the Aron that he built. Kama luchais eichlis bayern. So we just said the luchais is 12 tvachim, right? We just said that. Because if it's 6 by 6, it's 12. Shneimasa tvachim. How much are we left with? Because it's 2, right? We have 2 luchais. Each luach is 6. 6 plus 6 is 12 right near each other. How much are we left with? Again, we have 15 tvachim wide. You put in 12 tvachim, how many are you left with? 3, right? You're left with 3. Shneimasa tvachim, nishtayir sham shleisha tvachim. What do we have to do? Tzei mahen tefach. The wall you have to take out a tefach because it's also thick. We're counting the measurements from the outside. So the wall also had somewhat of a thickness. Tzei mahen tefach. 1 tefach for chetzel l'kaisel zeh. Half a tefach for each wall. The chetzel l'kaisel zeh. How much are we left in the aron? Nishtayir sham shnei tvachim. There, what you would have? Shebahen sefer Torah munach. Here you had a sefer Torah. There was only 2 tvachim. You see the Sefer Torah, that's a little circle. So we clearly see that the Sefer Torah was how many tvachim wide? 2. It's not possible to be more. How do we know there was a Sefer Torah b'chlal? Shenama says, Ein ba'aron. Rak shnei luchas avanim asher hunach sha'am Moshe v'gaimer. It's a pasuk in Melachim. Now, what's it mean? There was nothing in the ark. My ein ba'aron, rak. It says only. We all know. There's a miyat achamiyat. We all learn, we just flipped to 14a. 3. See by Chaim's over there. 14a3. My ain bar and rak. Miat achar miat, vein miat achar miat, elele rabbis. And what do we mean marbe by miat achar miat over here? Sefer Torah shemunach ba'aron. Right? This is one of the Yud Gimel Midas. We say this by Rabbi Shmuel. Whenever you have one miat, found another miat, the Torah is coming to tell you a riboy, and this riboy is to tell you Sefer Torah that watch shemunach ba'aron. So let's go through it. We're still going through this price. Pinarsto oroin larka. We went through the length, right? That the length is 2 plus 6 plus 6. Say ufarnis are in the rachbai. Now we have to make a count for the width of the wall. Kama luchis eichlis bar, and we said it's 6 by 6. So what are we up to? Shisha tvach. How much are we left with? If we said it's 9, right? It's going 9 the other direction, so we're left with 3. Nishtayir sham shloisha tvachim. We're left with 3. So tzeimahem tefach. Again, you have to take out the walls because the walls are half a tefach each. Chetzel koisel zeh v'chetzel koisel zeh. Right? The reason why we're taking out the walls because we measured it from the outside of the box. So the walls have a half a tefach. What are we left with? Nishnai Yusham Shnei Tfachim. So we're left with 2 Tfachim. So why was there 2 Tfachim? It means to say this is a machlokes if when or where they took out the Sefer Torah. Some say they took it out when the Melech was reading Hakel. Some say that he read it in Yom Kippur. Some say it was only for maintenance. For whatever reason, it was taken out. So this is what's going on. You have 6 Tfachim each luach, so it's 12. You're left with the Sefer Torah. But we're left with still extra 2 Tfachim in there to move around. Why do you do that? We did that so someone could stick his fingers in and pull out the Sefer Torah. Otherwise, you would have to do it in like a blender. Sometimes you put some people, they put like a vegetable in a blender. It's perfect. You have to smash it with the top. There's no room to put anything in there. Here we have plenty of room. Divrei Meir. This is the opinion of Meir that holds an Amma 6 Tfachim. Now we're going to go into Shittas Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda Imer Ba'amo Bas Chamisha Tfachim. An Amma's Chamisha Tfachim. If so, we have to go through the Aron. The Aron, according to Rabbi Yehuda, is 12.5 Tfachim long because it's 2.5. Each Amma is 5, so it's 5 plus 5 plus 2.5 plus a half Am, so it's 12.5. And then it's 1.5, so it makes it 7.5 instead of 9, right? So it's 5 plus 1 plus a half. The argument between Rameir and Rabbi Yehuda is not regarding the luchais. They all agree the luchais was 6 by 6. The whole argument is what is an amma? Amma is either 5 or 6. Okay, v'luchais arkan shisha barach shisha v'avyan shleisha, just like Rameir. So they were late munachas baraka shalari. So kama luchais eichlan according to Rabbi Yehuda shnei masatachim, just like Rameir. How much are we left with? We just said we said that what do we have? 12.5. Nishtayir sham chetzi tefach. We're left with a half a tefach. Etzba lekaisel zeh, the etzba lekaisel zeh. He didn't want to say that the wall was as thick as a half a tefach. Rather, it was a quarter of a tefach. Etzba is a thumb. I'm sorry, it's the index finger. So. Oh, interesting. So etzba could mean there are 3 options to taicha etzba. It really depends when we're learning, where we're utilizing the word etzba. Sometimes etzba in the base we find zeres rather than the pinky and talking about the karbonis. So etzba can mean this finger, the index finger. But over here, the definition of etzba, if you look at note 26, it brings down, it can either mean the thumb, which is then it will be a quarter of a tefach. We all have it a little thicker. The index finger is a 1/5 of a tefach, or the pinky, which is a 1/6 of a tefach. Here referring to the thumb. Thumb is a quarter of a tefach. Okay. So, nishtari shem chetzi tefach, because you clearly see, if it's left with a half, you have to say etzba means a thumb. By default, we're forced to say that if we realize that, right? Etzba l'kaisel zeh, etzba l'kaisel zeh. You have no choice to say that etzba means over here a quarter. Pinaras, okay, so we made the cheshbon for the length, aron la'arkoi. Now we have to make a cheshbon for the width. Say you farnis aron la'rachbai. Let's go make an account for the width. Kamaluchas oigdis barin, again, 6 tvachim, we're not arguing that. In the Ishtar Sham, we said it was 7.5, because according to the view, that's 1.5, which is 5 tvach, which equals 7.5. What are we left with? Tefach u'mechsa. Same man chetzi tefach again for the walls. So what are we left? Etzba here, we're putting in a little extra space. Etzba u'mechsa l'kaisel zeh. The etzba u'mechsa l'kaisel zeh. Here we're referring to a 1/6 of a tefach. Interesting. So over here, it means the same measurement. 1.5 finger breadths is a quarter of a tefach, like we just learned earlier. However, some want to say etzba l'kaisel zeh, etzba l'kaisel zeh. Okay, which makes it much easier to read, right? They're both the same measurements. Okay. Nishtayr Sham, what are we left with? Tefach Shabay Amudim Aimdim. According to Yehuda, you know what you had those 2 tefachim left for? For this area, Tefach. There was 2 silver rods. Then each side of the luchos had a little rod. Okay. Shenema, how do we know that there was rods? It says, Apiryoin Asalai Hamelech. Shloima Hamelech made himself a piryon. He made himself a piryon, which means luchos. Me'atze halavanan. He made them from wood of Lebanon. And amud of asa kesef. He made pillars of silver. Rifidasa is zahav. Its back was gold. His resting place. Merkavai argamon. It's purple wool, but here it means it's curtain between the Kodesh and Kadashim. Okay. And review that continues. We didn't even get to the kasha yet. Let's not forget. We mentioned earlier, it's a lengthy brisa to get to the kasha of what we're going to be bothered that we said earlier, 6 by 6. We're first going through Shittas Remain review the measurements of the luchos. The argos, this is review the talking. The argos, the chasha shigru by Pelishtim, the Pelishtim sent as a matan of a Klai Yisrael, Dayan the Kei Yisrael. Was munach betzida, was right near the ark. Shenema, how do we know this? It says, "Veskli azav Hashem Shavaisim lai." This is the king from Plishtim. He said, "Hashem Shavaisim lai Asham tasim of argas betzida." You should put on the backs near them. Okay, v'shelach l'maisan. You should send it to them. V'halach, and they go. Okay, we're talking about the battle between Klai Yisrael. What happened was the Plishtim captured this ark. However, what happened was they kept getting tragedy after tragedy. They realized the Rebbeinu Shalom sending a message to them, they must return it. So they sent it by a wagon that was pulled by 2 cows that all had a beautiful, they were full of gold. And by miracle, even though no one led them there, they went all the way to Eretz Yisrael. Ayin Sham, it's in Shmuel, it's a beautiful story over there. Okay, V'halach Sefer Torah Munach, and upon it was a Sefer Torah. Shenamar, La Kayach es Sefer Torah Zev Samtim Oisim Mitzad Aaron, take the Sefer Torah and you should place it on the side of the Aaron, Bris Hashem. And why does it mean Tzad Aaron? Mitzadai hu munach v'loi b'seichai. To tell you that what? It was on the side and not in it. Okay.
It was leaning against the...
It wasn't leaning. It was directly next to it.
And
here. Beautiful. See? Argash Shishib Lishtim. This is what they sent. Dairon. And there they had the Sefer Torah, and here's the Aaron. The Yehuda now explains the pasuk from which our mayor came out to say that the Sefer Torah was kept inside the Aron. Mani Mekayim Ein Ba'aron Rak Le Rabbis. Right? It said how I explained the double ocean was nothing in there. Le Rabbis Shivrei Wan Yudal Amid Beis Shivrei Luchais Shemunachim Ba'aron. We're talking about the Shivrei Luchas that was under the Luchas. So let's look at this. The Luchas were on top, and then we all know about the Shivrei Luchas, right? The Moshe Rabbeinu smashed the Luchas with the Chet Ego. So they put the shiver luchas in the bottom, and then they put on top the regular luchas. Okay. Now the reason why I think they did it is like that, it doesn't take any space, right? It's perfectly on top. The shiver luchas, again, we're not touching the art. Okay. Weiter. Now, we did this big brisa. Let's get to the kasha, right? That was basically a whole amud almost. This whole brisa to question Rabbi. Rabbi, again, what did Rabbi say? 6 tvachim is the perfect. Now we can hit the kasha. According to you, Rabbi, you're telling us that the perfect measurements of a Sefer Torah should be 6 tvachim. Mechti, let's go through it now. We all know that kol sheyesh be'kefai shloisha tvachim yesh be'reichav tefach. To explain this, I think they have a nice...
We have that formula.
Oh, so you're saying this is the formula they teach us, right? That's what we're bringing out. This is the formula. Whenever you have you call 3 1/3, that's the 1 1/3, right? 1 tefach.
This is the formula that's popular even among people that don't know.
All the measurements. People, 3 1/3, it's called, he's saying. That's what I guess they teach. The 3 1/3. Okay, perfect. Probably had a better education than my Lakewood education. Okay. 3 1/3. So we're saying you had 6 tvachim. Any circular object that's 3 tvachim has a diameter of 1 tefach. 3 1/3 we're calling it. Okay, so it's very clearly that if a Sefer Torah is 6 tvachim, you have 2 tvachim, right? Passing the tissues, like Chaim first. If you could pass in the tissues. Okay. Let's go through the measurements. You're telling us that what? The Sefer Torah we just said earlier is rolled in the middle. So then it makes it like 2 separate rolls, right? Nafish le mitrei tavach tifcha ravcha debeni beni. Now, automatically, whenever you roll 2 Sefer Torahs, even today, there's going to be a tiny, tiny bit of space in between the 2 poles when they meet. So even if it's 6, it has to be a little more than 6. So for Gemara, betray pushchi hechi Yosef. We just said this was the kasha. We just said that what? We only have 2 tvachim left. Let's say if there was munach. You Rabbi, you're busy with 6 tvachim. Something's not adding up. Numbers don't lie, right? No. The Sefer Torah and the Azara, the Sefer Torah that Moshe was paying, who took him out, it wasn't like what today we had. It was only with 1 roll. Okay. Vakati, again. Betray hechi Yosef. It's hard to believe. I got it, it's 2 tvachim. We'll accept that it was 1 roll and therefore it was only 2 tvachim. We said it's not a fruit blender or a blender that you has to fit perfect and we're stuffing it in. There has to be space, so it has to be a tiny bit narrower. Okay. The Gemara says, so if you look in the diagram, whoever's using Art Scroll, the diagram of note, what do you have at note 10? Right? See diagram. Look how they made the roll. It was with Sefer Torah. And then on top of it was extra space. Like that, it was able to be much more narrower. Do we see the Sefer Torah, how it's rolled? It was rolled, and it was when it got too thick, they had extra space. I guess you had to leave. I'm thinking now you might have had to leave space blank because we already learned that it's a bizayon to cover it. So if you look at the diagram, you must have left some space empty. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda. We learned Rabbi Yehuda who said the Sefer Torah was on by the Plishim and he sent it Mekamei. Where was the Sefer Torah? The Lacy Argas Sefer Torah Hechiyav. Before the Plishim sent this Argas, where was the Sefer Torah? The Gemara answers, Dapaf and Nafik Minei, his shelf was protruding from the Aron, V'Yosef Ilav Sefer Torah, and that's where the Sefer Torah. This is how we see it. The Aron, the last diagram at the bottom. We have an Aron, and right next to it's a beautiful Sefer Torah that was on the shelf. Okay. Now the Gemara is going to question Rameir. You Rameir. Hi mitzad Aron, my Ovidlay. What is the pasuk when the pasuk says, right? What does he do with this pasuk that says mitzad Aron? According to Rabbi Yehuda, that's what it meant. He put the Sefer Torah on the side of the Aron, like we just said on the shelf. Mara says, "Ahu mivayle the misnach le mitzad." To tell us that you put it on the side of the Aron, on the side of the luchos. There's 2 luchos. Don't put it in between the 2 luchos. You would think maybe you could put it 1 luach, Sefer Torah, another luach. Rather, put the luchos together, touching, and then put the Sefer Torah on the side. Again, like we all know, it was taka placed inside the Aron, but it was next to the wall. We already saw the diagram earlier where the Sefer Torah was, that it was on the side. Okay, not in between the 2 luchos. Now the Gemara questions, we have no more space according to our mayor. Where was the silver rods? Right, according to our mayor, there was only a tafach left to put your fingers in to take it out for the maintenance or for the kohen gadol. And for the Gemara, it wasn't placed inside the luach, rather it was placed outside the luach. 114b, number 2. Vera Meir, Shivrei Luchais de Munachin Baro in Rinole. How do we know, right? We just said according to Rabbi Yehuda, we made a drush, top of the we saw, that what? He made the drusha of what? Mani Mekayim Ein Ba'aron Rak L'Rabba Shivrei Luchais. But Rabbi Meir didn't learn that pasuk like that. He learned to tell us the Sefer Torah goes, must have a Sefer Torah, right? And the rabbis. For the Gemara, he learned it from somewhere else. Nafkalim the Rav Huna, the Amr Rav Huna. What is the pasuk saying in Shemuel? Asher Nikra, the ark. We're talking about shame. The ark which was called its name was Shem Hashem Tzvakos, the master of the legions. Yoshev Akruvim Alav. To tell us that what? What's this pasuk telling us? Melamed. It says the Shem twice. To tell us Sheluchos v'Shivru Lachos. Munachim ba'aron. Each word Shem tells me a luach. So it says it twice to tell us both luchas going there. Now, Frek the Gemara v'idach. What's Rabbi Yehuda going to do with Shem? He needs this pasuk to tell us Lechad Rabbi Yechanan. The Amar Rabbi Yechanan says Amar Shem Yechai Melamed Shahashem V'chol Kinuyav Munachim Ba'aron. Right? We have Yud Kei Vav Kei, and then there's other Shemus, 42 letter Shemus. All the other names were also written down and put into the Aron. V'idach. Now we're going to go back to Rameir Nami Mivayil L'Hachil. Chayri also needs Shem to tell me all the Kinuyav. So how does he know the Shever Luchis was put in the Aron? For the Gemara, Inachanami, you're right. Shem was to tell us that all the names of Shem as Rebbeinu Shalom was put in. Ela Shevre Luchais, the Munachim Ba'aron Minale. Where do we know that from? Nafgalei Midetani Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef says that Tani Rav Yosef in the Braisa Asher Shibarto V'Samtom. This is a pasuk in Devarim. The entire pasuk. Let's see the whole entire pasuk. It says as follows: Ve'echtoi v'seluchais. The article brings it down in note 19. It says we have it in the Torah R. The echtoi v'seluchais. Esadvarim asher hayu. All right, the second luchas we're talking about. Luchas arishonim. Asher shibarto. We took the Moshe Rabbeinu that broke the luchais and what? V'samtem ba'aron. According to this pasuk. You know what the pasuk is telling us? It's telling Moshe Rabbeinu to put the second luchais in the Aron. But why do you have to come to tell me Asher Shibarta? Why are you mentioning that you broke the luchais? You know why? Zakta B'Yosef. To tell us, Milame, the words of Asher Shibarta, to tell us, Shahal luchais, V'Shivru Lachais, Munachim Ba'aron, they're both in the Aron. V'idach, what's Rabbi Yehuda going to do with the extra psukim of Asher Shibarta? Hu Mevayel L'Chadar Shlakish, the Amar Shlakish. Asher Shibarta is coming to tell us, Amar L'Kadosh Baruch Hu L'Moshe, Yasher Koichecha, Asher Shibarta. That means to say is Ashrei. We're giving him a Yasher Koyach. That what Moshe Rabbeinu did it on his own. He didn't ask the Rebbeinu Shalom to do it. And that the Rebbeinu Shalom saying, I agreed with you. I'm happy you did it, and it was the right thing to do. Okay, Rameir is learning that pasuk of the pasuk to tell us that the Rebbeinu Shalom agreed to that. Okay, now we're going to go a little on. We still have a few minutes, and we're going to start from tomorrow. We're going to start from the Siddur Shel Savum. Let's go through Sefer HaNeviim. Tanu Rabbanon. This is that we learned just now. Rameir the holds you could put Tanakh together in one scroll. So we do it in order. Sidron Shel Neviim is as follows: Yoshua, V'Shoftim. First Yoshua, then Shoftim, then Shmuel, Malachim, Yirmiyah, Yecheskel, Yeshayahu, Shnemasar. Okay, that's the pasuk. Now, where do we put Yeshaya? We put it between Yecheskel and Shnemasar. Mechti. Hoshea Kodem. Hoshea came first. Dichsev, how do we know that Hoshea came first? It says Tchilas Dibar Hashem by Hoshea. Clearly in the pasuk, Hashem spoke first to Hoshea. Now, Frek the Gemara, you're telling me literally the pasuk Hoshea Dibar Tchila? Moshe by Hoshea, Kam Neviim Ayu. There was many Neviim between the time, the era of Moshe and Hoshea. The Amar Rabbi Yechanan, Shahaya Tchila LaArba Neviim Shenisna B'Vayis HaPerak. It's coming to teach us that Hoshea was one of the first of the 4 Neviim in that particular era. That was the era of the following 4 kings. There was in Yehuda, there's Isaiah, Yosam, Achaz, and Chizkiah. Okay, Rashi says this. Sharei Shaya b'Isaiah, v'Yirmi b'Yeshaya, Banas Nabi Yerushalayim, Yechesed b'Gula b'Yechesed. Okay, that's actually Rashi saying it's not b'Oisaper. Okay, let's continue. Frek the Gemara. It's Hoshea, then Yeshaya, then Amos Veicha. So Frek the Gemara, let Hoshea be before Isaiah. The book of Hoshea should be before the book of Yeshaya. Since Hoshea's Malachi was recorded at the same time as what? Chagi, Zechariah, Malachi. These are the 3 of the 12 Nevi'im. Memela v'chagi Zechariah Malachi Soif Nevi'im Havu. They were at the end of the Nevi'im. That was at the time of the second base of Mikdash. Chashuv leVadayu. Therefore, we put it in the Treyasa. Okay, I got that. But put the pasuk of Hosea as a separate sefer, and then put it before the book of Sefer Yeshaya. Everything more, since it's very small, Aidi de Zutar Mirkas. We were nervous that if you leave it its own sefer, it's very short, it would get lost throughout the years. Therefore, we did that. Okay, we put it in Treyasa. Now the Gemara is going to question Yeshaya's before the other psukim. Let's before the other sfar. Mechti Yeshaya Kadem mi Yirmiyah v'Yecheskel. Yeshaya was a king in Yezeiah, and Yirmiyah lived many, many, many generations later. When King Yeshaya and his sons were there, he was based in Yerushalayim. Okay, so let's see. Yeshaya was Kadem mi Yirmiyah v'Yecheskel. So likmeli Yeshaya bereisha. At least Yeshaya should be before the sefer of Yirmiyah and Yecheskel. Why is it Yirmiyah, Yecheskel, Yeshaya? It should be Yeshaya, Yirmiyah, and Yecheskel. And the Malachim, Saifei, Churbana. And then the book of Malachim is about destruction. The Yirmiyah is Kuli Churbana, and Yecheskel is Reisha Churbana, but Sefer is Nechemta. And Yeshaya is Kuli Nechemta. Therefore, we wanted to put Samchina Churbana, the Churbana, Nechemta, the Nechemta. We wanted to make it a line in order of Nechama, in order of destruction. Okay, that's why we kept the books like that, the Sfarim like that. Tomorrow, Yetzer Hashem, we're going to continue from the two dots of Sidron, Shel Nevi'im. Everyone should have a wonderful day.